For almost 2 years, our son ate the same 5 foods. That was it. Plain pasta, plain rice, one specific brand of chicken nuggets. And only that brand, because the shape was different from the others and that mattered. White bread, no crusts, no seeds, nothing on it. And one type of yogurt in one specific flavor, served in the same bowl every single time. If we ran out of that yogurt, if the supermarket changed the packaging, if we accidentally bought the wrong nuggets, the meal was over before it started. We were not being difficult parents, and he was not being a difficult child. This was survival eating. And if your family knows this world, this video is for you. Feeding difficulties are one of the most common and one of the most exhausting challenges that families of autistic children face. And they are still one of the least talked about honestly. Studies suggest that somewhere between 60 and 90% of autistic children experience significant feeding problems. That is not picky eating in the way most people mean it. This is a child whose sensory system, whose need for sameness, and sometimes whose gut health all combine to make eating feel genuinely dangerous or unbearable. For many of these children, the texture of a food, its smell, its color, even the sound it makes when you bite into it, can trigger a response as intense as physical pain. We lived inside that reality for years, and we learned, slowly, imperfectly but truly, how to make it better. Not perfect, better. If you want more honest content like this from parents who are actually in it, please subscribe to our channel at https://www.youtube.com/@neuroparenting-b4p and turn on notifications. We share the real stuff every week for families like yours. Let us go back to the beginning, because understanding where we started is the only way our journey makes sense. When our son was around 2.5, we noticed that his food world was shrinking. Foods he had eaten without any issue, soft vegetables, fruit pieces, scrambled eggs, started disappearing from his plate one by one. He would gag at the sight of something he had eaten happily the week before. He would push a bowl away before it even came close to him, reacting to the smell alone. At first, we thought it was a phase. Every parent you talk to tells you it is a phase. Just keep offering. They will eat when they are hungry. Do not make meal times a battle. We tried all of that. We kept offering. We did not force. We kept meal times as calm as we could. And the food world kept shrinking. By the time he was diagnosed with autism at 3, we were down to that tiny list of safe foods, and we were terrified. Not just about nutrition, though that fear was very real, but about what this meant for his life. Birthday parties, school lunches, family dinners, holidays. Food is so woven into everything we do as human beings, and our son was becoming more and more isolated from all of it. What we did not understand then, and what took us a long time to fully grasp, is that what we were watching was not behavioral obstinacy. It was a genuine sensory and neurological response. Autistic children very often have a condition called oral sensory processing differences, meaning the mouth, tongue, and throat are either hypersensitive or hyposensitive to input. For our son, certain textures triggered an immediate gag reflex that he had absolutely no control over. Mixed textures were particularly difficult. Anything where the texture changed unpredictably as he chewed. Soft food that suddenly had a hard piece in it. A sauce with visible bits. Anything he could not fully predict from the first bite. Alongside that, the need for sameness that is so central to autism extended fully into food. The safe foods were safe not just because of their texture, but because they were known. Every variable had been mapped and confirmed. The same brand meant the same smell, the same color, the same taste, the same texture, every single time. Any deviation from that, even a slight recipe change by the manufacturer, could make a previously safe food suddenly feel completely foreign and threatening. We learned this the hard way when one of his safe cereals changed their recipe slightly. He could tell from the smell before it even reached the table. That food was gone from his list permanently after that day. We also discovered, through an appointment with a pediatric gastroenterologist, that our son had underlying gastrointestinal issues that were making things worse. He had chronic constipation that he had never been able to communicate to us clearly. When your gut is uncomfortable, food becomes even more associated with discomfort and the avoidance deepens. Treating that gut issue did not transform his eating overnight, but it removed one layer of physical aversion that had been compounding everything else. The other thing that changed our understanding completely was meeting a feeding therapist, specifically a speech and language therapist who specialized in pediatric feeding. We had not known this type of specialist existed. We had been managing feeding at home through instinct and love and exhaustion. But a feeding therapist brought a framework. She helped us understand the hierarchy of food exposure, the idea that progress in feeding is not from not eating to eating. It goes through a long series of much smaller steps. Tolerating a food being on the table, tolerating it on the plate, touching it, smelling it, bringing it to the lips. Each of those steps can take weeks or months, and each one is genuine progress, even if nothing ever goes into the mouth. That reframe was revolutionary for us. We want to talk about what our son actually eats now, because we know that is part of why you are watching. His food world has grown. It is still not wide by typical standards, but it has more than doubled from those original 5 items. He now eats around 15 foods with reasonable consistency. We have added some proteins, a specific type of baked fish that he agreed to try after 8 months of it, simply sitting on the table near him at dinners. We have added 2 vegetables, both of which had to be prepared in a very specific way. One roasted until crispy with no soft parts, one served raw because the cooked texture was unacceptable. We have added 2 fruits, both smooth, both cold, served the same way every time. This took years, real years, and we are proud of every single one of those additions. Here is what we actually did, and what we believe can help you too. The first thing is to get a proper assessment from a pediatric feeding specialist before you try anything else at home. We wasted a lot of energy trying techniques we had read about online that were either not appropriate for our son's specific profile or that we were implementing in the wrong sequence. A feeding therapist assessed exactly where our son was in his sensory processing and designed a plan that matched him specifically. If access to a specialist is limited where you are, ask your child's pediatrician or autism team for a referral and be persistent. This is a medical need, not a parenting preference. The second is to take all pressure off mealtimes completely before you try to expand anything. This was the hardest instruction we ever received, and the one that made the biggest difference. The feeding therapist told us to stop trying to introduce new foods at meals for a period of weeks. No encouragement, no praise for trying, no gentle pressure, just safe foods, served predictably, in a calm environment. Meal times needed to become genuinely stress-free before our son's nervous system would be open to anything new. We had not realized how much low-level pressure had been building even with our gentlest approaches. Removing it completely changed the emotional temperature of every meal, and that mattered more than we expected. The third is to use food play as a bridge, completely separate from meal times. One of the techniques that worked for us was exploring food in a context that had nothing to do with eating. We would do art projects with dry pasta, sorting it, building with it, using it for sensory play. We cooked together and let our son handle ingredients without any expectation that he would eat them. We grew herbs on the windowsill, and he watered them and smelled them and sometimes crushed a leaf between his fingers. None of this was directly about getting food into his body. It was about building familiarity and reducing the threat response. And over time, some of those explored foods made it closer to the plate. The fourth is to think carefully about nutrition in partnership with a professional rather than alone. When your child eats a very limited range of foods, nutritional gaps are real and they matter. Rather than trying to force a broader diet in order to cover those gaps, we worked with a pediatric dietitian to understand exactly what our son's current diet was providing and what it was missing. We supplemented targeted deficiencies, specifically vitamin D, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids, in forms he could tolerate. This reduced our anxiety about his health significantly, which in turn reduced the pressure we unconsciously brought to mealtimes. Knowing he was nutritionally supported gave us room to be patient with the slow pace of expansion. The fifth is to communicate clearly and specifically with everyone in your child's life about food. And protect the safe foods fiercely. Extended family, grandparents, school staff, party hosts, sports coaches, everyone who feeds your child or is present when your child eats needs to understand that this is not pickiness and that the rules are not negotiable. We prepared a simple one-page document that explained our son's feeding needs, listed his safe foods, and made clear what not to do. Do not offer new foods without telling us. Do not put pressure on him to try things. Do not comment on what he is or is not eating in his presence. That document saved us from dozens of well-meaning but genuinely harmful situations. Other people's discomfort with your child's eating is not your problem to fix. Your child's safety and dignity at the table is. We want to close with something we wish someone had said to us in those early years of single-digit foodless and supermarket panic and birthday cakes that could not be touched. You are feeding your child love every single time you serve them the same safe meal without complaint. You are building trust every time you do not push. You are doing the slow, invisible work of helping their nervous system feel safe enough to one day say yes to something new. That is not failure. That is extraordinary parenting under extraordinary circumstances. The food world can grow. It does not grow fast, and it does not grow on anyone else's timeline, but it grows.